Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
Content warning ahead. This podcast contains very sensitive topics such as missing persons, unsolved cases, haunted houses, and paranormal activity. These type of topics can contain very upsetting, sensitive details and stories. Please listen responsibly. Welcome to Misty Mysteries, a podcast in the business of bringing you ghostly spooks and chilling crimes. I'm your host, Keely, and today we are talking about UFOs and possible alien encounters over some of the southwestern states here in America, which I believe is very fitting considering what has been happening over this last week, especially in Alaska.
Welcome to Creepy Tapas,
the show where two spooky best friends give you tiny tastes of terror connected by a common ingredient.
We serve up movie reviews, mysteries, murder, mayhem, and tantalizing tales from the depths of the internet, and some random bullshit too, all focused around a similar theme.
We blend our love of horror, oddities, and general creepiness and dig a little deeper, discovering the history, psychology, and truth behind your wildest fears.
Join us, Ash and Jordan, as we descend into full darkness every Sunday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's Creepy Tapas, y'all.
What?
Proud members of the Darkcast Network.
Hey there, I'm Tara.
And I'm Jessica, and together we co-host the podcast Three Spooked Girls.
If you love the paranormal
or murder,
join us on Mondays for full-length episodes where we discuss our favorite paranormal stories and true crime cases.
And join us again on Thursdays for our mini-sodes called Stabby Snippets, where we tell you all about true crimes happening in the news.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, or wherever the hell else you listen to your pods at. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by using the handle @3SpookedGirls.
Come and hang out with us and get your spooky on while we scare the hell out of you.
The Three Spooked Girls.
This story is the story of the Phoenix Lights. It starts off on March 13th, 1997, almost 26 years ago now, when the sun set in the states of Arizona and Nevada. That night, the thousands of people living in these states never expected that they would be part of one of the largest possible UFO sightings. From 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., calls came flooding into the emergency service lines of scared and concerned citizens wondering what the floating orbs and V-shaped spacecraft in the sky were. 7:55 p.m. on March 13th, 1997, one man in Henderson, Nevada, who remains anonymous even today, was the first to experience this UFO sighting. That night, he saw a V-shaped formation of something floating in the sky. Then the first set of calls started coming in from Prescott, Arizona. Some were seeing clusters of white orbs or reddish-orange orbs, best explained as fireballs by some, while others saw this V-shaped spacecraft. This craft contained between 5 to 7 lights, depending on who you ask. They floated and soared across the sky in unison from northwest before they turned south. One light in the back of the light formation moved up to the front of the craft before it moved back to the original spot it was in. This light formation, or UFO, was caught pretty famously on someone's handheld camera. The image you can see in the episode art and just by Googling the Phoenix Lights is from this famous footage. This UFO spans the length of about 3 football fields, but some only saw the craft was about a mile long. One family, the Lee family, may be some of the only witnesses who came forward who saw it the closest. On June 13, 1997, the whole family gave an interview for Fox News, explaining what they saw that night. I want to play as much of the interview as I can for you, so buckle in for a minute or so because the audio will sound a little bit different.
It's getting closer and closer, and we're saying, you know, that thing's coming right at us. When it finally got here and we realized this thing was coming right over us, we really started getting antsy, and then when it went directly overhead without a sound, it was like that. It was so big.
You couldn't even hear the wind. It was so quiet. It just didn't even do anything. It just came through.
It was a giant V, all right? And the right side of the V went over us. The left side was like a couple blocks over it.
We just didn't know what to do. You know, it was just like, my God, how big is this thing? It didn't seem threatening because when it was right overhead and we couldn't hear a sound, it was like you're just awestruck.
He thinks that he said if he had a tennis ball, he could have hit it. He could have thrown a tennis ball at it. It was that close.
It was very close. He just could have nailed it.
The last light went right over my wife and I, and there was no light on the ground. But I could see up inside that it was almost like a recess, and it had fluorescent like light inside, like a gas light of some kind.
You could see right through the middle of it, but it was like looking through two-way glass, like through a mirage that you see on the highway or something, or just when it's real hot. Right there, you can see through, but there's no light coming back or anything like that. It was just really weird.
As it went over, it went straight like through this V right there, over that guy's house.
It took about 15 minutes to get from when we first saw it all the way till we couldn't saw it.
We've just never seen anything like it.
I was always a very polite skeptic. I would never tell someone, if they told me they saw something, I would never say, you're a liar or anything like that, because I don't know. But now I don't know what to think, because this is impossible.
With the Lee family witness story in mind, I want to share with you a couple of others. One witness said, "It was totally silent. I've never seen anything even close to the colors from the exhaust that propelled that thing. It was as big as downtown Prescott and completely blocked out the stars." Then 31-year-old Dana Valentine and his father, an aeronautic engineer, watched from their backyard as the craft hovered 500 feet above them. Valentine said, "We could see the outline of the mast behind the lights, but you couldn't actually see the mast. It was more like a gray distortion of the night sky, wavy. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know it's not a technology the public has heard of before." Bill Grava, who was working as an air controller that night with the Sky Harbor International Airport Tower, with 12 years under his belt as an air controller, said the incident was weird and inexplicable. For years after, he still stated he had no idea what happened that night or what it was. Now, if you're like me and didn't know much about this UFO incident, besides maybe what movies or TV has said about it, you're probably thinking this is so odd. But it gets more odd, because these orbs and V-shaped craft were different things in different areas, meaning that there were probably two separate UFO or possible alien encounters in one night in the span of over 4 hours over several cities. But for a good portion of this incident, the V-shaped craft or light formation just hovered over Phoenix, Arizona. This is why we got the name the Phoenix Lights, even though it was witnessed across Nevada and Arizona, starting in Nevada. To make this encounter even more odd, the skies were not empty that night. Pilots flying in the area were notifying air control what they were seeing, though what they were seeing never showed up on any radars. These pilots in the sky and citizens on the ground who stood witness to the incident never received any answers that night or any time after the incident. To this day, we still don't have any answers as to what these lights or craft could have been. As this incident was happening, the local law enforcement couldn't do anything, especially as it spanned across states, counties, and cities. All they could do was try to keep the people calm and keep the peace as it was happening. Shortly after this happened, the local government tried to call the U.S. Air Force for answers, but the U.S. Air Force told them that they were prohibited from doing any sort of investigation into this. So, you see, in 1947, the U.S. was at the dawn of Cold War with Russia when the U.S. Air Force released a shocking press release that they recovered a flying disc or saucer from a ranch in Roswell, New Mexico. Terrified of this finding and the Cold War, a project called Blue Books was made to investigate flying saucers and claims of UFO activity in the U.S. This project was to investigate the threat of UFOs against the U.S. Project Blue Book is a whole nother thing outside of the Phoenix Lights, so much so that M from And That's Why We Drink covers it in like 2 or 3 parts, and their episodes are a lot longer than mine. I definitely cannot cover all of Project Blue Books in this episode, but know it caused a lot of fear in the US about aliens, UFOs, and the possibility of the aliens working with the Russians. But by 1969, UFOs were deemed not to be a danger to the U.S. by the late U.S. Air Force Secretary Robert C. Siemens, and the project was disbanded. Rules were made against the U.S. Air Force investigating claims of UFOs or alien encounters, which is why they were prohibited from helping the local government figure out what exactly happened that night in March in Arizona and Nevada. Without any help from the local government or the U.S. Air Force for answers, the citizens turned to independent organizations like Mutual UFO Network. The public kept reaching out to the government for answers. Even a local Phoenix councilwoman started to demand answers, being the first government official to publicly say something about the Phoenix Lights incident. Her call to action put enough pressure that the governor of Arizona at the time, Fife Simonton, finally had to acknowledge what happened during the night of March 13th. He did this in a press conference which he held on June 19th, 1997, 3 months after the incident. This press conference was not what most expected, though. For some, it brought relief after living in fear of the Phoenix Lights, but for others, his press conference made a mockery of their fear and belief in aliens. During this press conference, Governor Fife stood on the stage and announced that he had captured the alien responsible for the Phoenix Lights incident. His chief of staff, Jay Heller, was then brought out on stage wearing an alien costume while handcuffed. Everyone was pretty quiet, which he met with by telling them, "This just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious." Jay then took this head from the costume off of his head. I'm going to play the clip of that press conference for you.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
In the alien costume, the governor's chief of staff.
Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
UFO enthusiasts were not amused, especially since the governor was believed to have seen nothing.
This press conference definitely ruffled a few feathers in the UFO research community, but it brought some relief for the concerned public, which was Governor Fife's goal with the press conference. In 2007, 10 years after the incident, and after he had retired from being governor of Arizona, he met up with CNN to release his own truth about the Phoenix Lights. He admitted that while he was serving as governor, he would deny he even saw the lights and made jokes about the incident to keep the public, which he said was on the brink of hysteria, calm and not cause any worry about this mysterious UFO encounter. Although he himself was very startled and worried about what happened that night. In his interview, he told CNN, "I'm a pilot. I know just about every machine that flies. It was bigger than anything that I've ever seen. It remains a great mystery. Other people saw it, responsible people. I don't know why people would ridicule it. It was enormous, and it felt otherworldly." So, were these Phoenix Lights otherworldly like former Governor Fife and many other witnesses believe? Let's go over some theories of what these mysterious lights may have been. In 2007, 10 years had gone by and people kept searching for answers. This is when the Air Force finally provided answers that they felt confident in for the public. The Luke Air Force Base in Arizona said that these lights were nothing but flare drops from a plane. The argument in this claim is how could these flares be moving the way that they were in a perfect formation? A former pilot, Ty Grow, explains that flares in the sky act like hot air balloons. They go where the wind takes them. If there was a steady breeze that night, it would keep them in a uniform line. He also explained that flares can appear to be a lot closer and brighter in the sky, saying, "You'll be looking up at the airliner that looks like it's 10 miles away, and they're really 400 miles away." I personally believe that this could explain the orange orbs seen in the sky that night by numerous witnesses. But for those who witnessed the Phoenix Lights incident, they do not agree, including the former governor. They don't believe that flares explain the V-shaped lights that seemed attached to a craft, especially with how intelligent or accurately these lights moved in formation. There were also no crafts registered on a radar of others flying that night, even those that saw the lights while flying. In 2008, there was another Phoenix Lights incident that has mostly been proven to be a hoax set off by a man with balloons and flares. But for those who saw the lights in 1997, those lights were nothing like what they saw the night of March 13th. For most of those who saw the lights that night, they became believers in things not of this world and believed that for some odd reason, this night the state of Arizona and Nevada were visited by aliens. Maybe the aliens in this UFO were trying to get a read on the humans of Earth by showing themselves, or maybe they were on some business that we just don't know about. I mean, there is a lot of empty space in these states. My personal favorite, and one I choose to believe, is that the UFO seen moving, since it was so large and slow moving, was basically a cruise ship of the sky. Basically, it was filled with aliens on vacation, and for some reason, that night they couldn't hide themselves or they were having problems with their craft. This is one that is definitely out there, but I also believe our current UFO situation is a bunch of rowdy alien teens daring each other to go to where they're banned, disobeying their parents. I personally don't think aliens care that much about us if they are out there, although the cruise ship theory does remind me of a really fun episode of Doctor Who. That's going to be all for Misty Mysteries today. Thank you so much for being here and listening to this episode. If you like Misty Mysteries, please check out all of the other episodes I have. I have an array of topics in true crime and paranormal topics. If you would like to help me out today, you can do so by leaving your review where you like to listen to podcasts, or by suggesting and sharing this podcast to your friends and family. For now, please stay safe out there, and I will see you next time for more ghostly spooks and chilling crimes.